course, earlier tonight here on Sky News, you would have seen the very first Treasurers' debate between Jim Chalmers and Angus Taylor. It was slightly more interesting, I thought, than the debate we got last night. There was a bit of biff, thank God, which was good. We actually got to see some difference between these two potential treasurers. One, of course, already is the treasurer. Angus Taylor wants to be the treasurer. One of the most interesting moments, I think, was a question that was set up first by Ross Greenwood and one that was then continued on by Angus Taylor. It gave a little bit of a gotcha moment to Jim Chalmers. We'll start with Ross Greenwood.
Will you apologise to the people of Australia tonight for having your government having said that energy prices would come down by $275 when, in actual fact, average prices, according to the Financial Review, are at least $500 more than what they were at that time? So you said $275. Will you apologise to the people of Australia?
I take responsibility for all of the decisions that we've taken in our budget.
So you will apologise?
Including the fact that energy bills last year were $300 cheaper because of our energy rebates that Angus didn't support.
Ross then gave both men an opportunity to ask a question of each other. So Angus Taylor asked exactly the same question.
You've seen and you've overseen the biggest collapse in our living standards in history, bigger than any of our peer countries in the world. Will you apologise to Australians?
Well, first of all, Angus wrote down that question and then you asked it, and he didn't have the ability to think up a second question. I think that's...
Well, I'm giving you another go, Jim.
It was an easy kick for Chalmers, it has to be said. He also had another interesting line tonight about doji sycophants.
And here I think we've got the first contrast of the debate tonight, the first choice, because we've got a Prime Minister standing up for and speaking up for Australia, and we've got an opposition leader and an opposition, which is absolutely full of these kind of doji sycophants who have hitched their wagon to American-style slogans and policies, and especially cuts, which would make Australians worse off.
Now, I have to say, overall, I think Jim Chalmers won this debate. It felt like he was punchier, he was on the front foot. Angus Taylor seemed a little bit nervous and on the back foot most of the time. Having said that, I do think Taylor performed better than I expected. He showed that he could, at least to some degree, put up a fight to Jim Chalmers. Chalmers is a good performer in these kinds of situations. I'll come back to it a little bit later in terms of some things that I think Taylor could have done better at, but he did hit some good points, particularly talking about the cost of living and the danger that Labor is to the country and what they have wrought upon people over the last 3 years.
GDP per capita has gone backwards for 21 months in a row under your so-called stewardship, Jim. And the result of that is our household standard of living, what our incomes can buy in terms of goods and services, has collapsed in an unprecedented way, 7.9% since you came into government. The buffers are gone. If you look at household budgets, they're deep into digging into their savings.
And all of this is great, but there are 2 points I think that Taylor really could have taken the fight up against Chalmers on, and he missed. One of them was when Jim Chalmers started talking about cost of living relief and how the government had provided cost of living relief in the form of power subsidy, of course, to the tune of $300, and they're now extending that to the end of this year. And he said, well, you know, if it weren't for that, people would have been worse off, and the opposition didn't support those measures. All of that is true, but why did Angus Taylor not then turn around and say, look, it's all good and well for you to say you are helping people with the cost of living, but how about how you've contributed to the increase in the cost of living? He could have then listed off the increase in power bills and 100 other things and saying, well, how can you possibly say you've made the cost of living better when you are actually, in many cases, the root cause of the cost of living getting worse? He didn't hit on that one. And the other one that really annoyed me was Jim Chalmers talking about economic growth and new businesses. I think the number he used was about 80,000 new businesses have been created in this term of government. Well, why did Angus Taylor not turn around and say, did you not read the AFR last month, Dr. Chalmers, where it said that more than 75% of the jobs that were created in this country last year were created in government-funded sectors. Sure, there might be 80,000 more businesses in this country than there were when you came to power, not to mention all the other ones that have gone bust. We'll leave that to one side. But fundamentally, the jobs that are being created in new businesses in this country, is not because business is booming, it's because the government is paying for it. If the government was not stumping up money for things like the NDIS, you wouldn't have any growth in the private sector whatsoever. I think there are a few of those moments that lead me to think that on paper, and this is not a judgment on the substance, but on the performance tonight, Jim Chalmers won that debate.